It was a night like any other, or at least it should have been. I was alone in my small apartment on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where the streetlights flickered and the roads were always too quiet. I had just turned 22 and life was moving slower than I wanted. My days were filled with a boring job, my nights with endless scrolling through social media, trying to find something, anything that would make me feel connected to the world outside. That night, I was restless. The clock on the wall read 2:47 a.m., and sleep seemed like an impossible dream. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room. I got up, rubbed my eyes, and decided to step outside for some fresh air. Maybe that would help clear my head. The night was cool and crisp, the kind that made your breath hang in the air. Like tiny clouds, I walked down the empty street, the only light coming from the half moon above, casting long shadows that danced across the pavement. I had no particular destination in mind, just a need to move, to escape the stillness of my apartment. As I rounded a corner, I noticed something strange in the sky. At first, I thought it was a plane, but there was something off about it. No blinking lights, no sound. It was just a single bright orb, hovering unnaturally low, far too low for a plane. My heart started to race, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from it. The orb grew brighter, almost blindingly so, and then without warning, it shot across the sky and stopped directly above me. I was frozen in place, my mind struggling to comprehend what I was seeing. This wasn't normal. This wasn't possible. A low, vibrating hum filled the air, making my bones rattle and my teeth chatter. The orb began to descend slowly, its light casting an eerie glow on the deserted street. I wanted to run, to scream, to do anything, but my body refused to move. I could only stand there watching in horror as the orb transformed before my eyes. It was no longer just a light. It was a craft, unlike anything I'd ever seen. Sleek and smooth, with no visible seams or edges. It was otherworldly, terrifyingly so. The hum grew louder, more intense, and then, as if in response to some unseen command, a beam of light shot down from the craft, enveloping me completely. My body lifted off the ground, weightless, like I was being pulled up by invisible strings. Panic surged through me as I tried to struggle, to break free, but it was useless. The light held me firmly in its grasp, and all I could do was stare helplessly at the ground as it grew farther and farther away. My vision blurred as I was pulled into the craft. The light was overwhelming, filling every corner of my mind with its blinding intensity. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The world around me faded into nothingness, and then suddenly, everything went black. When I came to, I was lying on a cold, metallic surface. The air was thick with a strange, chemical smell, like something was burning, but there was no smoke. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my mouth was dry. I sat up, my head spinning, trying to make sense of where I was. The room I found myself in was unlike anything I had ever seen. The walls were smooth and featureless, curving in ways that defied logic. There were no corners, no edges, just a seamless expanse of metal that seemed to pulse with a faint blue light. The only sound was a low, constant hum, like the one I had heard outside, but deeper, more resonant. I wasn't alone. They stood in a semicircle around me, their eyes, if they could be called eyes, fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. They were tall, thin, with elongated limbs, and skin that shimmered like liquid mercury. Their faces were expressionless, with large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. There was something unsettling about their presence, something that made every instinct in my body scream to get away. One of them stepped forward, and I could feel its gaze bore into my mind. My thoughts became jumbled, like someone was sifting through them, pulling them apart and putting them back together in ways that didn't make sense. It was like they were reading me, understanding me in a way that was far beyond anything I could comprehend. The creature raised a hand, if it could be called a hand, and placed it on my forehead. A wave of coldness washed over me, spreading from my head down to my toes, paralyzing me completely. My mind was flooded with images, flashes of memories, thoughts, emotions, all jumbled together in a chaotic mess. I could see my childhood home, my parents, my friends, but they were all wrong, distorted, twisted into something alien. And then I saw it, the reason they had taken me. In my mind, I saw a planet far from Earth, a world bathed in perpetual twilight. It was dying, its once thriving cities reduced to ruins, its people, if they could be called people, fading away like shadows. They were searching for something, a way to survive, and they had found it in us, in me. I tried to fight it, to push the images out of my mind, but it was no use. The creature's presence was overwhelming, like a cold hand wrapped around my brain, squeezing tighter and tighter. I could feel myself slipping away, my thoughts growing distant, like I was being pulled apart piece by piece. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The creature released me, and I collapsed onto the cold floor, gasping for breath. The images faded, leaving only a lingering sense of dread. I was nothing to them, just a means to an end, a tool to be used and discarded. They didn't care about me, about any of us. We were just another resource to be harvested. I don't know how long I lay there, the hum of the ship echoing in my ears. Time seemed to lose all meaning, the minutes stretching into hours. Or maybe it was just seconds. Eventually, the creatures moved away, their attention shifting to something else, and I was left alone in the cold, metallic room. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, but I was too exhausted, too drained. My mind felt like it had been shattered into 1,000 pieces, and I didn't know how to put it back together. The light returned, and I was lifted once again, weightless, helpless, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the street where it all began. The orb was gone, the night was silent, and I was alone. The world around me was unchanged, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. They were out there, watching, waiting, and I was no longer the same. I had seen them, felt their cold touch, and I knew that they would return. Not just for me, but for all of us. And when they did, there would be no escaping their grasp. Like and subscribe for more stories like this.